Conversation on race and policing began in response to the police killing of George Floyd on May 25th, 2020. In this partnership between CSU San Bernardino and the Brennan Center for Justice, we hope to engage in ongoing discussions related to the history and current context of race, policing, and criminal justice with guests from diverse academic fields and backgrounds.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's conversation on race and policing. This week, we are joined in conversation by Dr. Keeonna Harris. My name is Matt Patino. I am an adjunct instructor of history at Crafton Hills College and a former police officer with the city of Rialto. Before we begin, I would like to read the CSUSB land acknowledgement. We recognize that the campuses of California State University San Bernardino each sit on unceded indigenous ancestral homelands. For San Bernardino, the land of the Gabrielino peoples, Chemehuevi peoples, Serrano peoples, and the federally recognized land of the Yuhaviatom of San Manuel Nation. For Palm Desert, the land of the Cahuilla peoples, and the federally recognized land of the Agua Caliente Band of Cahuilla Indians. We recognize that every member of the CSUSB community has benefited and continues to benefit from the use and occupation of this land since the institution's founding in 1965. Consistent with our values of community and diversity, we are responsible for acknowledging and making the university's relationship with Indigenous peoples visible. By offering this land acknowledgement, we affirm Indigenous sovereignty and will work to hold California State University San Bernardino more accountable to the needs of American Indians and Indigenous peoples. Now I would like to turn it over to Dr. Mary Texeira.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am a former professor in the Department of Sociology and very happy to be part of the panel today. And especially today because you're looking at Keeonna, who is one of us. She graduated with a degree in sociology. I won't say how many years ago, Keeonna, because I'm not sure if you want me to, but she was one of our outstanding students, and we were very proud when she went on to get her PhD, and she's now what everyone wants after they get their PhD. They're getting paid, so she's part of that. So we're very pleased. But she is a writer, storyteller, mother of five, prison abolitionist activist, and she describes herself as an academic gangsta. She was an inaugural PEN America Writing for Justice Fellow in 2018 to 19. She received her PhD from Arizona State University. Her forthcoming debut memoir, Mainline Mama, which she's going to discuss today, draws, let's see, did I lose my spot here? Yeah, I did, sorry. Mainline Mama reflects on mothering and community building as acts of, I'm really sorry, my computer keeps jumping around. Draws from experience as a Black woman, teen mother, and 20 years of raising children with an incarcerated person. This work interrogates mass incarceration from the perspective of a mainline mama and someone who navigates the borderlands of the prison and the free world. In Mainline Mama, Keeonna reflects on mothering and community building as acts of radical defiance against carceral institutions designed to dehumanize. And this is sort of the theme that we have been discussing in the 3 years that we have been doing. This is our fourth year or third year? Fourth year, third year. Fifth year. What? Have I been sleeping or what? Yeah, this is our fifth year calling attention to this. Keeonna has taught classes on mothering and research methods and writing workshops for Tin House. Keeonna was a summer resident in 2021. In 2023, she was a Baldwin for the Arts resident, Edith Wharton resident, and Hedgebook resident. She is currently a postdoctoral scholar in the Department of Health Systems and Population Health at the University of Washington, where she is developing the Borderland Project, a mental health and community support system for women forced to navigate carceral institutions to maintain connections with incarcerated persons. Kat Brooks, you're very welcome to listen in and join as a guest to co-host. Hi, Kat. I just saw her. Did she leave? Yeah, okay. Anyway, I am so proud and so very honored to present to you our former CSUSB Mainline Mama, Keeonna Harris.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Texeira, for such a gracious introduction. I want to give a special thank you to Cal State San Bernardino, especially Project Rebound in the Sociology department, for just welcoming me back with open arms. I really appreciate you guys. I'm just going to start off with a brief synopsis of the book for those who haven't had the opportunity to read it. Thank you, Dr. Texeira. Okay, so Mainline Mama is a love letter to Black girls and women who have had to learn to navigate the carceral system, whether that's incarcerated, formerly incarcerated, or mainline mamas like me who were trying to keep a connection to a loved one. So the book details my personal experiences raising children and trying to make a home with an incarcerated partner, and then navigating that carceral system and trying to build a home with my partner and children. I built community with other women and discovered self-love. And ultimately, I realized that the home that I was always in search of was inside of me already. So that's just a brief synopsis. I'm going to do a brief reading for you from one of the chapters.
Can you tell us which one, which page, Keeonna, so we can read along?
Yes, I will be reading from the beginning, Desert Bloom.
Oh, I was hoping you'd do that. It's so beautiful. Thank you.
I run my fingers across the fabric. It's almost too perfect to take off the wire hanger. I knew this was the dress as soon as I saw it in the window of Lane Bryant. The saleswoman taps me on the shoulder. Do you want to try it on? I nod and follow her to the dressing room. Let me know if you need anything else, she says. It's long, past my knees, and white, with eyelets all over it. It ties behind my neck, leaving my back out. This dress isn't traditional by any means. Not a big frou-frou beaded dress with a train or a veil. The eyelets add perfect detail, like something you would wear in the country, walking barefoot in the grass. A smile comes over me because today is my day. I'm an LA girl at heart. Even though I was raised in the city, I am obsessed with the country. Not saying I want to be a farmer, but I resonate with the open landscapes where you get to feel calm with all of your senses, to be mindful of everything around you, the dew from the humidity on your skin, the sound of the water in the creek, a deep breath of clean country air. I love the shaded wraparound porches where you can sit for hours looking out at the expansive world. The country is a place I've only visited, but it's a deep part of my family history. It comes to me from stories my granny used to talk about growing up in Kilgore, Texas. Stories of her family, 10 of them in a little house, everyone sharing clothes and beds. They could not afford toys, but they were content with the games they played with one another. At Christmas, they would be lucky to receive a piece of fruit or a peppermint stick, something rare and sweet. They ate the same few things cooked in different ways. Hot dogs on plain bread, hot dogs and beans, beans and cornbread. They didn't rely on material things to make them happy. They relied on one another. My dress is my country. Where uninhibited by the weight of the future, I can slow down and be present. In my dress, I am finally living on my own terms, like Janie with tea cake and their eyes were watching God, laughing without having to worry about who is listening. I can take in as much happiness as my heart can hold. Instead of a veil, I wear a silk shawl big enough to cover the back of my dress and go over my shoulders. Burgundy, like the cherries I used to eat with my cousins on my granny's porch in the summer. The dress is comfortable and familiar, just like the nightgown I stole from my mom, something worn and loved for years. I touch the fabric as though it always belonged to me. In this dress, I am perfect. I am also tired. For years, I wasn't a human being, but a human doing tasks, taking care of whatever needed to be done. Everything was a task, checking off the list for the day to take care of the house, the kids, everybody else. Now, at 25, I've been working and raising a family for a decade. This moment means I can finally breathe and be with myself. My outfits almost never reflect my personality. Weekdays are for work, business casual, Dockers, Coach or Steve Madden flats, no makeup, nothing extra. Weekends mean only visitation appropriate attire, nothing flashy that could draw the attention of the guards. Today, though, is my day. This will be the first and only time I show up on the weekend as my authentic self, live and in color. It's my wedding day, and I'm checked in at the motel down the street from Calipatria State Prison. This isn't the bridal suite at the Four Seasons. This is a no questions asked truck stop hotel where the decor hasn't changed since the 70s, which might have also been the last time they washed the sheets. For once, I don't have to manage my kids. They're staying a few rooms down with my mom, but the TV isn't working. I forgot to bring my laptop and DVDs, and I'm not trying to pay the hotel rate or spend all my minutes calling people. Now it's just me waiting with my outfit for tomorrow. The next morning, I get dressed. I wear chintz lipstick, bronze like a new penny, MAC, of course, and chestnut lip liner. The rhinestones on my shimmering chandelier-cut burgundy earrings dangle and pop against my deep brown complexion. I have extensions in my short locks so I can wear my hair up, off my neck and tucked into a French roll. My shoes, backless with a small heel and toe strap, are burgundy and accented with rhinestones, a perfect match with my earrings. I wait for my mom, my granny, my aunt, or my cousins to tell me how beautiful I am. I wait for someone to hold the door closed, to tell the groom not to look because it's bad luck. But it's only me in the hotel room with the perfect outfit. I shimmer and shine. I've never felt more beautiful. I've never felt so alone. It's July and I'm melting, and so are my flip-flops. The bottoms leave a sticky trail wherever I place my feet. The line to the prison is always long, but today it seems even longer than usual. Calipatria State Prison is in the middle of the Southern California desert, less than 50 miles north of the US-Mexico border and almost 200 miles southeast of Los Angeles, far from anything familiar. The prison is surrounded by alternating patches of dirt and barren fields. We are below sea level. The lower the elevation, the higher the air pressure. And the higher the air pressure, the higher the heat. You can't escape the sun out here. It feels like you're that much closer to hell. In the middle of all this heat and dirt, cars are lined up bumper to bumper for miles. It's like the beginning of a disaster movie, after the evacuation notice, but before everyone starts to panic. Through each car window, you can see people taking naps, changing diapers, brushing their teeth, and waiting to move an inch. I pull past car after car until I get to Chastity's. She's saving our spot. Chastity greets me with a glistening smile, the metal in her braces reflecting the harsh desert sun. We met through our boyfriends. We're both regular visitors, and over the past 6 months, we've become close. We initially formed a connection around the shared circumstances of visiting our incarcerated boyfriends, and that soon evolved into a deep friendship where we truly care about each other. Chastity has developed a hard exterior over the years, but this morning, her smile gives her away. She tells me and my family, my 2 sons, my mom, my auntie, my cousins Kawhi and Kanisha, my friend Shanice, and my granny, to pull our cars in front of hers. Usually, getting in line takes all kinds of planning. Someone needs to leave their car in line early the day before. Inexperienced visitors show up early in the morning or late the night before and sleep in their cars. Chastity and our crew have a system. Someone drops off a car the day before and gets a ride back to town. This way, when we show up on visiting day, we're not at the back of the line of cars 3 miles long. After 3 hours driving from LA out to Calipatria, not having to worry about the line feels like hitting every green light with no traffic. Still, even with the best spot, I'm impatient. I start to chew my lip to keep me occupied, using my finger to hold the inside of my cheek against my teeth and slowly scrape the inside. I keep checking the rearview mirror, popping my head out the open window to see what the holdup is. C.O. Davis, who passes cars through the gate every Saturday, is late. I don't want any problems today. Cars usually start moving at 7:30 a.m. It's 7:45 and we're still sitting still. The justice of the peace is arriving at 9 a.m. and my family has to get through security. I get out and walk to my family's car to chat and ease their impatient minds, even though today they should be easing mine. I'm the bride, daughter, mother, niece, cousin, wedding planner, concierge, meal planner, and personal GPS. I need a break. Looking back at the car stretched forever into the desert, I tell them to be ready and to pay attention. I notice the cars ahead of us start to creep toward the gate, bumper to bumper like a giant metal caterpillar inching forward slowly. I hurry back to my car, and as I get closer, I can see Davis, a thin, dark-skinned officer waving for us to pull up as he waits in the booth with his aviator glasses. How many visiting, he asks. There's a joy in his tone. I'm a regular here, so he already knows I'm with my family. Me, I say back with a laugh. He checks my ID and gives me a visiting pass, then waves us through to the parking lot. I give everyone a once-over to make sure they're dress code compliant. No spaghetti straps, no underwire bras, no flip-flops, no denim or chambray, no fatigues, no orange, no white t-shirts, no skirts more than 2 inches above the knee, no slip-ups today. Can't risk the guard behind the counter deciding a color is wrong or a skirt is too short or too transparent or too form-fitting. If a guard feels like it, they can hold us up or outright end the whole visit before it starts. I put on my shawl and Cinderella shoes, tossing my melted flip-flops back into the car. Everyone is ready. We walk as a family to the visitation center for Calipatria State Prison. After everyone fills out their visitation forms and turn them in to the officer at the front desk, the next round of waiting begins. Nothing here is comfortable. Everything is designed to ensure visitation is temporary. There isn't much to look at. The waiting room, full today, is filled with hard folding chairs lined up facing a giant counter. Packed behind the counter are at least 8 COs and the path to the metal detector. A door leading to the bathrooms and a couple of vending machines occupy the edges of the room. Any bills larger than $1 are not allowed in the visiting room. The second vending machine sells picture ducats. The tickets are given to the porter in the visitation room so they can take Polaroids during the visit. $2 a ducat, 1 ducat per picture. The porters aren't photographers, just somebody else locked up that the prison assigned to take pictures for the day. And there are no do-overs. Luckily for us, Jason already handled the picture arrangements. All we have to do is wait for our number to be called. Well, almost. Here's where things can go good or bad, depending on who's working behind the counter. Luckily, I'm a regular and I know just about everyone. And even if I don't know the particular person working, I know how to talk my way through dress codes issues to finesse the guards and the rules. Still today, I have to get 9 people through. Plus, I'm wearing a dress with no back, a violation of dress code. I'm trying to be slick with my shawl to cover it up, but if the officer behind the security desk wants to make a big deal out of the dress, my day will grow even longer. At the desk, I take off my shoes and put my ID and money in the bins to go through the metal detector. Cash is limited to $30 per adult, $20 per kid. So to buy snacks, I brought $150, stacked in a neat pile of singles. Of all the dreams for my wedding, watching my whole family go through a security checkpoint was never one of them. Prison security is a physical inspection from head to toe. The guards look through my hair, inspect every inch of my body, pat me down, all while making little comments to me, at me, or about me to one another. Can you believe? Better you than me. These women, they pick me apart, and I can't say anything back, not a peep unless they ask me a question directly. The COs have absolute authority over the security process. They can stop the whole visit because they feel like it. To see the person I love, I have to put myself at the mercy of the state. Today, I'm keeping a close eyes on the eyes, faces, and body language of the COs, trying to see what they're paying attention to. Are they pushing us all through like an assembly line? Are they chatty, wanting to talk? Are they in bad moods? I'm nervous that they may decide they don't like my dress. I'm also watching out for my family. At any moment, an intimate and humiliating body search could become a part of my wedding guest experience. I put my
Keeonna,
shawl.
I'm sorry, Keeonna, why don't we stop now?
Okay.
This is pretty fascinating, but if you could just describe how
Okay.
things went at the wedding,
Sorry.
because it's really something. And then we'll maybe have any other remarks, and then we'll have
Oh,
Q&A.
that's totally fine. I was just reading one more paragraph. So
Oh, if you want to finish that
no,
paragraph.
no, it's
Okay.
fine.
Okay,
It's fine.
okay.
I was just reading up until the parts where my family and I actually got into, the
You
visitation
got in.
room.
Right.
And how it's basically is designed for you not to want to come back.
Sure. Yeah, yeah. And how did the wedding go?
Oh goodness. The wedding was amazing because I had my wedding my way.
Yes,
But it was
yeah.
really a difficult time in imagining, like I was saying a moment ago, that's not how I pictured my family being in my wedding, in my space, and also having to share my space with strangers that I don't know, and to be put on display as a spectacle because I got married in the visitation room.
And tell us a little bit about Jason.
Jason is now out from prison. He was released in 2016. He is now working inside the prison. He's a counselor to young men who are sentenced to life without parole. And he's doing some great work.
Wonderful. You must be very proud of him.
I'm very proud that he was able to come home and turn his life around, because prison, as you know, is very traumatic and it has lasting effects, even when you think it's not affecting you.
Yes, yeah, of course. So most people would not guess that you all met when you were like 14, right?
Correct.
Do you want to tell us about that?
Yes. I met Jason when I was 14 years old in total teenage fashion. My best friend at the time was dating his best friend. And so they played Cupid, and, I was supposed to keep this guy company who actually ended up growing on me. We were both pretty much wearing masks, which was really funny as I was writing the book and really understanding our story. Is on one hand, we were very vulnerable with one another, but at the same time, there were still things that we hid from one another. Like I was familiar with him, doing the things that he was doing, being a gang member and selling drugs, but I didn't know how deeply he was involved in gang culture until I was pregnant with my son.
Most people, in fact, the vast majority of people would look at you without knowing your complete story and look at the hundreds of thousands of women who are doing the same thing that you did in terms of loving someone in prison, and they would feel very smug in judging you, judging people like you.
Yes.
Do you have any particular experiences with that, with people judging you?
Definitely. Before I decided that I was going to be forward facing and drop the mask and be authentic and write this book, I was judged a lot. And so that's why there were two versions of myself. So folks knew I was married, but I didn't share with folks that I was going to the prison every weekend. They
Right,
found,
right.
would ask me at work, oh, what are you doing with your family this weekend? Oh, we're just going to spend time together and hang out. But folks didn't know that. And unfortunately, when you are connected to someone that's incarcerated, you're just as vilified as they are.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
even what I read a moment ago, every weekend where I went to the prison, the guards would have comments every weekend about how we were dumb or not very smart, we must not have good self-esteem. But what you come to realize is we are living in the age of mass incarceration. And so that means there are millions of people affected by this or have a loved one that's incarcerated, more than we know.
I'm going to let selfishly or unselfishly let my other panelists ask you any questions they might have.
Yeah, I went to a prison to visit a friend, and it was interesting because, much like yours, this I didn't know the rules. First time I ever went to a prison to visit somebody. I've been to jail, but jail things are different. But prison is very different, and um, it's amazing the amount of power they give an individual to allow you in or not in. Can you
Correct.
talk about that a little bit more about how much, like you said, you knew people because you've been going so often, but if you didn't know people, you wouldn't get in if you said that's the wrong thing or you reacted to the way they were talking about you or doing something.
Correct. Navigating prison is definitely a delicate balance because you have to get to know who's there. And I got to know who's there because I went so much. So I got to know people's personalities and moods and dispositions. But if you're a new person that's going, you need to make sure that you're complying with the rules. And even if they say anything rude to you, you have to keep your attitude in check because they hold all the power. And they can definitely say, hey, you cannot visit today, or you cannot come back for a couple of months. And they will put that in the computer system. And there's no one else that can fix that because it's your word against theirs.
It's a lot of power for one person.
Correct.
And the money, I was surprised. They didn't ask me what I had in my pocket financially, but dollar bills, nothing larger than a dollar bill. So you had 150 ones.
Correct.
Wow.
And the idea behind that is to prevent folks that are coming in to visit from smuggling money to the folks that are inside.
Interesting.
How do they get money? The folks inside.
To be perfectly honest, most of the contraband that folks inside get are from the COs that work there. They're not from the folks that are visiting, contrary to popular belief, because there's no way, as much as we are searched, that we're not able to bring in a cell phone, we're not able to bring in drugs, we're not able to bring in certain things. So the majority of contraband is all coming in from the inside.
So do you put money on the books? Is that, I mean, legally?
Yes,
in terms of
yes, you can
your
put money on the books. When I brought money into the prison, that's just to buy things during the visit, during the actual visit.
It's cigarettes. How's that work?
Oh, in California, there is no cigarettes. That is banned. That has been banned now for a while. And that is a very hot commodity, is to be able to smuggle in tobacco or cigarettes because they no longer allow that in California. It's been over 10 years.
Wow. And how
Wow.
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
when they have them, where do they smoke?
People smuggle in just loose tobacco and they find something to roll it in to smoke it, whether that's paper, toilet paper.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Dr. Harris, you talk about the dehumanization of the institution, and I think those of us on the panel and some of our listeners are familiar with how dehumanizing being an inmate can be. And what you read was fairly dehumanizing. Does it go beyond just that? Is there a stigma that you felt outside the walls of the prison?
Always a stigma felt outside because I'll just speak for myself. I was not supported in my process. Most folks, when you are trying to keep a connection to a loved one, we're judged. There's no empathy at all. When you think about folks that are in a relationship and their partner's in the military or their person is in business and they travel a lot, no one asks, why do you stay? Why do you love this person? Why do you want to keep your family together? But when that person is incarcerated, it becomes a totally different topic. And so I didn't receive a lot of support because everything is rooted in choice. And so folks are saying, oh, you're sad today? Why are you sad? You chose this life. Oh, you're raising these kids by yourself? You chose that. So I didn't get a lot of empathy at all. So I didn't share. And so that was the beautiful thing about finding this community and support with other women, because we were able to create our own safe space where we can validate one another.
Having gone through the academic part of your life, Keeonna, how have you been received? I mean, I know how you were received with us in sociology. By the way, most of your mentors have logged in and they are here to support you and to ask questions if they indeed want to. But I'm wondering about Arizona State and the other places that you've gone. How has your story been received? Because it's almost impossible to have gone through that entire system without telling part of your story, as you did with us. So do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes. When I was accepted into Arizona State University's program, I was beyond thrilled because I had never heard of a justice studies program. I was just like over the moon. And so when I went there, I was excited for this new journey. However, I wasn't supported in the ways that I needed to be supported. My dissertation was autoethnographic, and supplemented with interviews with several other Black women. So I actually got a lot of pushback about inserting myself in my work. But I decided to do it anyway, because I feel like this is a story that needs to be told. And, wanted to open up conversations about mass incarceration and mothering, but also our shared humanity. So I received a lot of pushback. It was a really beautiful full circle moment. I was invited back to ASU with one of my colleagues, Natalie Diaz, for the Center of the Borderlands and Imagination, to do a launch there when my book first debuted. And it was really nice to be back and also to connect with students who have some of the same struggles, because my book and all of my work, whether that's creative or academic, is about community and it's about reaching folks and to be seen and to be heard.
Do you think your professors learned something from you?
Yes, I do. I am relentless. I am relentless.
Good for you. I'm glad you found the strength to stick to, because I in part I asked about that because when I was in graduate school, I was told never to, and I wrote about my former profession, and I was told never to use the personal pronoun.
Correct.
The first person personal. You can't do that. And like you though, I pushed back, and it made sense to say I and we and us, but it was always a fight. It was always a fight,
It's always a fight, and it's really, at this stage that in the state of the world, we all analyze our lived experiences, and so that makes the work it makes it richer.
Yes,
There's no way
sure.
that you can write anything or an analysis of society, of the world, without including yourself or your community. That makes
It's been done though. I mean, it's been done more than what we did. I mean,
Correct.
people have they remove themselves from the situation. And that's why you don't use the personal pronouns, because, you're up here and you're looking down and judging and reporting, etc. Not always, but it's definitely, it would have been easier, I think, for me as well as you. You wouldn't have had the same rich kind of elegant dissertation that you had. Nevertheless, you could have gotten through without the personal. And so what are your thoughts on having, been forced to do that? Would you have been able to do it anyway?
The dissertation?
Yes, without being personal.
I mean, anything could be done, but I wouldn't have been happy with the project.
Right.
I could have silenced myself. We've all done it a number of times. I could have done that and kept my head down and just, I don't want to make any waves, but I didn't want to. And I was like, at this point, no, I'm going to choose me. And I'm writing this to my community.
Good. Yeah. Other questions from our other panelists? I fear I'm taking up too much time, too much valuable time, which is unusual for me, right?
Hi, Dr. Harris. I'm Mike German, and as I was an FBI agent for more than a dozen years, and had the misfortune of having to go into prisons as well, and saw them. I mean, obviously, intentionally dehumanizing, and not just for the incarcerated, but for their families and for even the workers. Can you talk about how? I mean, you talk just briefly about getting to know the guards and the staff. What were those relationships like, and how did you navigate them? And did you ever see them outside the prison context? And I'm sure as your husband went back to work in the prison, that you see them in a different perspective.
Well, the relationships I had with the COs was very, very funny. Because even though they're COs, they're real people. Mm-hmm. And so it ranged. So I remember there's folks that I met when they just got out of the academy, and they started when they were 21, and they had braces, and they were younger than my children, and they were kids. And I see them start out innocent and be open-minded and treating everyone with respect. And then over the time, I see them transform to something else because they get indoctrinated with certain kind of beliefs. But there are relationships that I had that were amazing. And I would see them in town because they lived in the prison town. So after a visit, when I was staying there for the weekend, we would run into each other at the grocery store, at the bowling alley, at the Starbucks. So I was able to create a rapport, which helped me out immensely, but it also helped out other women. Because when there was grievances or things came up, I was able to have a direct line to talk to someone.
And I imagine also that those relationships had a lot to do with the security of the inmates as well. In other words, if you had a negative interaction with a CO, that could be used to justify harsh actions against your husband.
Correct, because there is that as well. If you have a negative interaction, I was never concerned about things being done to me, quote unquote, but there are ways that they can take it out on whomever you are connected to inside.
And do you have any ideas for how that part of the system can be reformed, right? Because I feel like, just in my experience, I felt like they were incarcerated too.
Correct, they are.
And also traumatized, but were able to basically use their power in a way to act out, against the most vulnerable people in the world. Do you have any way of how you can address that, keeping that humanized kid coming in and making sure that they stay that way? Or is it just the system is is broken.
The system is broken. There's no way to, we have to address the system first, and there's no way to skip over that and then focus on the employees
Mm.
if we're not changing the root of the problem.
Great, thank you, and thank you for the book.
Thank you.
And Dr. Harris, your children, so they're in the system. They're in that system too. So
Correct.
So how resilient were they?
They are very resilient. My two older children, they were there from the onset and the beginning of everything. So they have the most memories as far as going every weekend and dealing with the things. They've been very resilient, and they were able to really recognize what was going on very young, because prison does this really horrible thing to children as well, especially to Black children and Black boys, where when they were younger visiting, they were treated and seen as children. They were allowed to play on the floor and to play games and sit on their dad's lap and things of that nature. But when they got around 10 years old, they were not looked at as children anymore. And so they were under the same rules and dictatorship as if they were adults. And it was really sad to watch. And so once my children became around 12, 13, they stopped going.
You know, one of the richest parts of the book, I think, are the letters that you and Jason exchange. And it struck me that, of course, we knew you were brilliant, but it also struck me that Jason is brilliant. Jason wrote some really cool letters, and obviously he is a very, very bright man, and was a very bright young man. What do you think is the difference then? Because, you know, here you have two bright children growing up in South Central LA, and one has, you know, what could have been a horrible outcome. And I'm thinking, if it weren't for you, I don't know if I'm encroaching on your personal life, but I'm sort of thinking that if it weren't for you and your support of Jason, he might have gone the way of so many wasted lives. So what do you think made the difference in his life? Was it just you, or was it something else inside of him?
As far as in the context of him being able to make it home?
Yes, yeah. Or to get into crime to begin with, you know, because you know, having been raised in South Central myself, I know that sometimes the only choice for young men is to join a gang. So what are your thoughts on that?
Definitely, his family dropped the ball with him. When I met Jason, he was already dropped out of school, and not because he wanted to be. He had already lost his mother to addiction. His father had also been killed when he was a young boy. So he was left to some family members who were too busy with their own lives to keep an eye on him. And so he needed a place to stay. He needed money. And he also too needed love. And I don't think people understand that as far as how gang culture works, and how these are all children looking for love and attention. And so when you have someone say, hey, we're here for you, that becomes your family, and you will do anything to make your family happy, good or bad. And so I think that's what happened with Jason. So when we collided, he was already fractured. It is my belief that Jason was able to make it all those years because of myself and my family, hands down. He had something to look forward to. He had a family who was going to come and show up for him and to keep him going and to pour into him. And so that's why I believe he was able to make it, because most people don't have that.
And he understood your kids not visiting.
He understood that.
Because
he understood it. It hurt, you know, it hurt, but he understood. And then also as the kids get older, they have their own friends, they have activities. My son was, playing travel ball. They were busy. So our dynamic had to change.
And so you raised kids by yourself.
Yes.
So and you were going to school and all the above. Financially, were you sound or was it a struggle?
I was very fortunate that I've always been able to have like a good job, quote unquote, a good job. So I was sound. I was not relying on anyone. I was able to take care of myself and my family on my own.
Well, that's a major plus. Um, how many years was he incarcerated?
So I'm like, what is the math? He did 22 years.
It's a long time.
Yes.
And he was originally sentenced to just 20 years. Where'd the other 2 years come from?
No, it was 22.
Oh, so he served all of his time.
Yes.
No time out for good behavior or
No.
anything like that.
No.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, what a miracle that is, that he
Yes.
came out and landed on his feet, more or less. Your dissertation, which I've, already invited you to come back and discuss with us, but could you put your personal experience in Mainline Mama in the context of what you studied for your doctorate?
Yes. So my dissertation focuses on Black women's relationships to prison through visitation and or incarceration. So that meant looking at how prisons affect Black women and the effects on their families and communities and relationships. And it was based on my personal experiences visiting prisons. So I approached the project with autoethnography and then supplementing my experience through the interviews with several other Black women. And I used the data to interrogate how Black women are forced into relationships with prison through incarceration of loved ones and how these Black women define, practice, and experience mothering. So across those interviews and experiences, I found and developed an experience I term Mainline Mama, which is a term that represents the theories and the practices of mothering for Black women that engage in care work through relationships with children, partners, and loved ones.
And what did you learn about the system itself through your dissertation?
There was a lot that I learned. I was just amazed. I think the biggest theme that was so prevalent was the mothering aspect, and just like the mothering that we do with our biological children, the mothering that we do, the other mothering, which is, rooted deeply in Black feminist epistemologies, how we mother one another, how we mother our partners, but also how we mother the state.
Yeah. So you were performing every time you visited?
Correct.
You were an actor?
Correct.
Whether you're angry or sad or whatever, you can't show that.
You have to leave those feelings at the door.
At the door, yeah.
Thank you, Mary. I was going to ask that question. It's like you're going to I played football, so before the game, you get your head straight.
Correct.
You get ready for what you know is going to happen, what's in front of you, and the thing I'm really having a hard time with is for visiting. It really isn't necessary for COs to be rude.
No.
That mentality, where did that come from? Do you know?
It's ingrained. It's part of police culture. It's a part of believing that folks are disposable. It's a part of believing that they did something wrong, so they should be treated this way.
But these are people that are not incarcerated, and you're still treating them like.
But you're there visiting someone, so by your, guilt by association, just by proximity.
And I actually have a follow-up to Stan's question. How much did the gang designation play into that? In other words, the guilt by association, that even to be designated as part of a gang, okay, it's because you're associated with these other crimes that you might not have committed, both in how he was sentenced and how he was treated inside the prison, but even how you and your family were treated.
As far as, well, in California, things are kind of different. Because I don't feel like I was treated differently because of any of his gang affiliation. It's just an across the board of treating people horribly.
I'd also like to follow up with Stan's question about, how officers treat you. And my experience in the sheriff's department sort of underscores that is that you get penalized if you're too nice.
Correct.
As an officer. You
Correct.
can't be seen as being soft.
Correct.
As being as having a heart, as seeing other people as human beings.
Correct.
Not their fault, but if you want to do well and keep being employed and to promote, you've got to show that hard exterior. Sometimes, to the ultimate, which is beating people up or even shooting them unnecessarily. So I would just like to caution anyone who is going into, working in the prison system or in policing, that's what is going to happen for the most part. And I don't know if that's Michael's experience as an FBI. I mean, you guys wore suits, so probably you didn't, you could smile at the public and wave every now and then. But those guys would, even as a child, I remember they would come through the neighborhood with their windows up, looking straight ahead unless they saw someone they could pull over. And so the kids it was never officer friendly for us in our neighborhood.
Correct. No, that is very true. They are trained to be that way. And if you expect to, keep that job, have the respect of your colleagues, they do not want to see you being too friendly.
No, not at all. Not at all. And the excuse they use is, of course, you're going to let your guard down.
Correct. You're going to let your guard down. You cannot trust these people.
Right.
Those are the kind of words that they use. You can't be trusted.
Yeah. And they have special names for people in the neighborhoods. They don't see them as human beings.
Correct.
They don't see them as people who are like them, except for the accent of race or gender or economics. They judge like we all do, I suppose.
Yeah.
And
Mike, how did you experience that?
Experience which part? I'm sorry.
I was asking Michael how he experienced that need to be tough and hard in the FBI.
I think what Dr. Harris said was right, that there was a culture that demanded conformity.
Yes.
And, I eventually resigned from the FBI because I was never a good fit with that culture. And I resisted it as long as I could until it was clear that that wasn't going to be helpful to anyone anymore. But I often found it odd and kind of on the same topic that, on the one hand, these COs are looking down on the inmates and their families as, putting themselves above them. But as you said from the beginning, the COs were also bringing the contraband into the prison and essentially doing the same kind of activities that these people were incarcerated for. And when, in all law enforcement, when there are, quote unquote, the bad apples, the rest of the apples surround them to make sure they don't get in trouble, right? That it's an accepted part of the culture that our criminality is to be protected and defended against, while your criminality deserves severe punishment and social opprobrium. During that 22 years, were you or your husband aware of COs who did get caught but somehow were protected by the system?
Oh yeah, I've seen it all. I've seen CEOs get caught and it be protected. I've seen CEOs actually get arrested or get fired. So I've seen a number of different things. But what I find fascinating is that the folks that would get arrested or were fired were mainly women. The men were protected a little bit more.
Mhm.
But what was their reward for smuggling contraband? What was their reward?
Well, whose reward?
Yo,
This money,
ah, okay.
money. Cell phones go for thousands of dollars.
Wow. See, my friend that when I went to visit, the reason why I went to visit because my friend was a CO, fell in love with an inmate, got fired,
Mm-hmm.
and she was visiting her partner in prison, and that's
Mm-hmm.
when I went, and so and like you said, it was a woman who got caught and got fired, and not only got caught, got fired, but this happened up in Oakland, but yet it hit the Riverside newspaper where she lived, where her family
Yes.
grew up,
Yes.
and I mean, it was embarrassing. I mean, it was,
I've seen that many times.
yeah, it's a shame.
Coming full circle, the reason we started this, whatever we're calling it, meeting each week and talking about some aspect of the criminal justice system in regards to race is because of that horrible scene of George Floyd being murdered in front of God and the whole world. And so really, when you put it in that context, you can see very clearly that he did not see George Floyd as a human being.
Correct.
He saw him as, and if he was a human being, he was less a human being than he was.
Correct.
Right? So I think it's very clear that that is the expectation of people in the neighborhoods, people who are visiting prisons, and you do better by understanding that, and so you get along. You don't expect niceness.
Correct.
When you understand that dynamic, that these folks, even men of color, women of color, because you're no longer Black or brown or Native as an employee, you're, like they say, we bleed blue.
Correct.
You are a cop now, and that trumps everything else. It trumps everything else. So, unless there are other questions.
Wanted to jump in very quickly, Mary. Sorry.
Yes, go ahead,
just a
Jeremy.
couple orders of business. First, as I noted that I have a couple extra copies of Dr. Harris's book, and you can email me. I'll put my email in the chat, and so that'll be a race to the email after we wrap up. Send me an email, and I will send you a copy while supplies last. And I also sent the link to the book for those who aren't lucky enough to get a free copy. Make sure that you get your own, and the link is in the chat. And there were a couple comments, just mainly saying hello from Patty Little. I'm so delighted to be part of this webinar and witnessed your wonderful work. I was struck again today by the beauty of your words as you expose the inhumanity of the carceral system. Just wanted to say hi and thank you for your wonderful work with respect and support. And Elsa said, hi, Keeonna. Elsa Valdez said, hi, Keeonna. So glad you wrote about your experiences, which opens up our eyes so other families can navigate the prison. And Marcia Marks had a question, amazing and powerful. And I think you covered actually some of the things that Marcia asked about. Talk a bit more on if you had to create a duplicity of identity when you said you had established a rapport with the COs, or I guess how did you establish any relationship with them, knowing how much they were part of the problem? I think she may have asked that before some of your comments about that. And if I can just quickly ask my quick question, that is about the chilling effect that the current assault on higher education is having right now in terms of not only Palestine protests, but much, much wider in the Department of Education and now countless college campuses across the country. There are many, many people talking about running to the center. There's this very timid move to be quiet. We're being pretty loud here, and we're very, very grateful for you joining us. And I was wondering if you could maybe share a little bit about your experience taking this longer view of your lived experience and your scholarship and your access to the general reader with this book to talk a little bit about maybe helping us understand why we shouldn't be running to the center, but we should be staking out a position that is forceful, that is powerful, and that is abolitionist. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm definitely a person that feels like this is the time that we all need each other. And so we really need to have a conversation about, like I was saying, our shared humanity. So we do need to be loud about things that are not acceptable. But I'm also, that needs to be balanced in this world that we're currently, in this regime that we're currently living thing. Everything does not need to be said out loud. This is the time to get really connected to your community, to your people, and to organize. And we are going to have to face each other and drop, all the things or the ideas that we may have about one another. And to really, if we're going to survive through this, we're going to have to stick together. We're going to have to be vulnerable. We're going to have to use our voices and our collective power.
Thank you so much, Dr.
Well
Harris.
said. Well said.
It is, and you're
Thank
right.
you for joining us.
Yeah. Week, and so thank you so much, and we hope to have you back again. Very interesting and informative, and I will read your book. So thank you so much for joining us, and hopefully we see you again next year.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's so good to be back and to see some old and new faces. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And something I haven't said to anyone in all of these panels that we've had, or all of these posts that we've had. I love you, Keeonna. I'm so proud of you. And you will be forced to come back next year and talk about your dissertation.
Thank you. I love you too.
You're quite welcome. You're quite welcome. And I'm sure I'm speaking for Doctors Marks, Valdez, and Little that we love you and we're very, very proud of you.
The sociology crew. Thank you guys. I love you guys.
Sociology rocks. We rock.
Exactly.
We'll see you later. Take care. Bye-bye.
Conversation on Race and Policing has been supported by funding from the California State University, San Bernardino College of Social and Behavioral Sciences, Pfau Library, and the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. Then Lee is our technical consultant. Pamela Crafton provides administrative support, and Alan Yorba provides communication support. There's more information in the show notes, and please join us online at csusb.edu/CORP for upcoming programming, and find our catalog of over 100 past events with guests like Robin D.G. Kelly, Jamal Bowman, and Dorothy Roberts, and many more.